Hello there and happy holidays. It's Fenny Rob, and today I'm going to be giving you some ideas for stocking stuffers for the board game nerds in your life. The criteria here is that these games would fit in a stocking, and they also cost $20 or less as of the filming today based on my online research. First up, we have Holly Jolly from 25th Century Games. This is obviously a holiday themed game where you're going to be collecting cards from a big Christmas tree set up in the middle of the table made out of those cards. You're going to be using tinsel and light cards to add up to certain math to be able to allow you to draw some ornaments and presents off the tree. You'll be collecting sets of different kinds of cards, trying to score the most points. It's very accessible. It's for 2 to 4 players. This is a perfect stocking stuffer, and families will love this, and it's a very clever game. You should check it out. That is Holly Jolly from 25th Century Games. Next, we have Jekyll vs. Hyde. This is a 2-player trick-taking game, which is a rarity in my experience. It's by Mandu Games. In this game, one player will be Dr. Jekyll, the other one will be Mr. Hyde. There's going to be a board with 10 spaces on it. The piece that you're going to be fighting over starts on one end, and Mr. Hyde wants that piece to come all the way across to move across 10 spaces. And Dr. Jekyll is hoping that that doesn't happen by the end of the game, which would be 3 rounds. So the game will end either if the piece makes it all the way across, Mr. Hyde wins. If the piece doesn't make it there after 3 rounds, Dr. Jekyll wins. And the whole idea is there's going to be tricks taken, 10 of them per round. Dr. Jekyll wants those to be as even as possible because the piece will move the difference between the number of tricks taken. So if someone takes 7 tricks and the other person takes 3, doesn't matter who takes the tricks, that's irrelevant. It's the difference between. So that would be 4 that the piece would move. And again, if it's 5 to 5, the piece doesn't move at all. So there's this tug of war that goes back and forth, and there's a few special powers that the cards will have with potions. And it's a very clever game. It plays very quickly. It's a perfect game for a stocking stuffer. This is a game that I didn't know about till this year, and I really found it to be one of the best games I've played all year. So you should check out Jekyll vs. Hyde, a perfect stocking stuffer this season. Next up, we have Skull. This is a game for 3 to 6 players, played with coasters. That's right, coasters. It's an older game, but there is a recent printing of this as of making this video. I saw it. It's got a pink cover. The art is really spectacular in this game. Each player is going to have 4 coasters. 3 of those coasters are going to have flowers on them. One of them is going to have a skull. You're going to go around the table and place one coaster down in front of you. It's going to be face down so no one can see what you have. At some point after it's gone around the table one time, someone's going to promise, instead of playing a coaster, they're going to say, I bet I can turn over, let's say, 3 flowers before I get a skull. Then it's going to become a bidding match. The next person can say, well, I could do 4, I could do 5. Or everyone passes, and then the person who was last to make a bid has to now do that. And they're going to say, oh, you turn over your top coaster. You turn over yours. You turn over your next one, until a skull comes up. So if you get the number of flowers that you predicted you would get, you will win that round. And if you get a skull, you will lose. And you have to get rid of a coaster every time you lose. But if you win the round, you get to flip over your scoring tile, which is also a coaster. And if you do that twice, you win the game. It's very simple. I hope I explained it well. There's plenty of videos out there, I'm sure, about this game. I will put any links to any of the games that I'm talking about today, of videos I've done about them, in the description below, so check that out. Skull is a great game. It racks in at under 20 bucks, and I think you can fit this into a stocking pretty tightly. It's pretty thick, but I think you can make it. And if not, just wrap it and put it under the tree and pretend it was in a stocking. Next up, we have Tiny Epic Galaxies Blast Off. This game is a redo of Tiny Epic Galaxies, the original. Both games are published by Gamelin. Both of them are designed by Scott Alms. The original one would have been on the list, except I couldn't find a copy for $20 or less. This game was 1 to 5 players. The new version is 2 to 4 players. It's basically the same game. The new one is supposed to be a little bit more streamlined and have a little bit easier access, but I haven't played this one yet. I do own it now. The original I've played dozens of times. It's not a very complex game anyway, so I'm assuming that this is going to be really accessible for anyone. But I do find this to be a gamer's game in that there's enough strategy here that's a little bit more than what you would get from your typical stocking stuffer little game. The whole series, Tiny Epic series, is that in a nutshell. They're games that fit in these little boxes that have a lot more going on than you'd think. Same thing here. You're going to be rolling dice. You're going to be using them to basically fuel your exploration of planets. Those planets are going to garner you some bonuses and, more importantly, points. The first player to get to 21 points triggers the end of the game. You finish out the round, and whoever has the most points wins. One of the cool things about these games is that it's got a follow action, meaning when it's not your turn, you might be able to spend resources to copy the action of the active player, whichever dice they're using at the time. So that's kind of a neat mechanic that keeps you engaged. It's a really great game, and I think everyone who's a gamer should own it if they don't already. So if someone in your life doesn't have it, this would make a great stocking stuffer. Next, we have Risk Strike from Hasbro/Avalon Hill Games. This is a game for 2 to 5 players that is supposed to be a fast and fierce game of world domination. It's supposed to be the classic game Risk in 30 minutes or less. Now, I have played this game a few times, and I will put a link to our playthrough on the channel in the description below. And a lot of boxes lie about how long it takes to play a game. This one was pretty spot on. It really did feel like we were playing the old game of Risk that I used to play as a child all the time, except instead of playing for 4 hours and being bored for about 2 of those hours, this game was fast and furious, and it was very engaging. And I really feel like it had the best parts of Risk without any of the bad parts. I highly recommend this game. It is got very good art, and the chips, the pieces are good. The tactics cards in this game are kind of something that the original Risk should have had and would have probably made the game a lot better. I highly recommend this game. It's got a classy look and a very, very fun game. If you have anyone who even remotely enjoys the game Risk, please enlighten them. You can save many hours of many lives with this game. Perfect stocking stuffer. Here we have No Thanks. No Thanks is a game for 3 to 7 players. It is a push your luck game at its heart, but it also has elements of resource management, and it kind of feels a little bit like poker in some ways because you have chips, poker chips, and they're hidden from other players. The whole point of the game is to have the lowest number of points after the certain number of rounds are played. All that's going to happen, if it's your turn, you flip over a card, that number is going to range somewhere between 3 and 35 or 36, I believe. And whatever number is on the card is the points you would score if you took that card. So what you're going to do is you're either going to take the card or you're going to take one of your chips, put it in the middle of the table and say no thanks, and it just keeps passing around until someone eventually takes that card. It may go around the table a number of times, but eventually people are going to run out of chips. There are some strategic elements here that are hidden in the simplicity in this game. Again, you have to time when you're going to take cards. It may be a card you really don't want, but you only have 1 or 2 chips left, and it's better than the alternatives. It might be better to have the 17 card now than it would be for some higher number that you have no choice about. Very clever game. Our group has loved this. It doesn't matter if I'm playing with people who have never played games before or if I'm playing with people who are truly hobby gamers. This game has a space at all of those tables. It plays great with even up to the 7 players. It's very fast, snappy. It's simple turns. Great game. 100% guarantee on this one. Go ahead. Let me know in the comments if you've played it and you don't like it, because I've never played this game with someone who didn't like it. No Thanks is relatively inexpensive game. Great game to own. If you don't have it, get it and go ahead and buy a copy for someone else and put it in their stocking. No Thanks. Now let's talk about Lost Cities. Lost Cities, the original game, is a two-player card game designed by Reiner Knizia, probably my favorite designer of all time. In this game, you're going to be playing a card and drawing a card, and that's it. That's all the mechanics, really. And you're going to be trying to collect certain suits of cards to score points based on the numbers on those cards. And the trick is, if you score more than 20 in a particular suit, you get positive points. But if you get under 20 by the end of the round, you're going to lose that number of points. And it can get out of hand really quick because there's some multiplier cards that might make it even better or worse for you. This game is about hand management and trying not to give your opponent a card they need. For a little bit of rules, there's a lot of tension in this game, and I've always loved this game. It does fall under the $20 mark, or right at $20 at this point, but it's a little bit big for a stocking, unless you're a giant, I guess. This is a new version, a roll and write version of Lost Cities. It has some similarities in that there's different rows, which are the suits in this, different color rows, and you're going to be rolling Yahtzee style, trying to go up those rows. There's really cool combos where you can get a benefit in another suit if you cross a certain point in one of the rows. And it's a very clever game, in my opinion. I think it's very underrated. It's not complex at all, but it definitely is a game that has Reiner Knizia's mark on it, which is there's just a few rules, but the tension is pretty high and the decisions become very difficult, especially at the end of the game, sort of like Yahtzee, where you run out of spaces to fill in on your sheet and you start taking negative effects. And so we really love this game. It's very good at 2 players. It plays very quickly. It's a very small box, perfect for a stocking, and very portable. I highly recommend this game as a roll and write, especially if you like Lost Cities and you know kind of how that game works. This one to me is a no-brainer. I love them both. In fact, buy both of them for someone. You can't go wrong. Lost Cities, Reiner Knizia, do it. Last up, we're going to talk Catan. Not Catan, the original game, but 2 other games in the Catan family. First up, Rivals for Catan. This is a 2-player card game, and it is supposed to be the original Catan in this small box and for 2 players. And I gotta say, it definitely fits the bill. I had seen this game and it looked interesting to me, and I finally pulled the trigger and got it. And I gotta say, this might be the best version of Catan that I'm aware of. It really does capture all of the game, and there's no board. It's very portable. And even though it takes up a lot of table space, it feels pretty strategic. It almost seems more strategic than the original Catan. I can't exactly say why. I haven't figured that out yet. But I do think that even though you're at the mercy of the dice here, it feels like you have some more combos and things you can use to kind of mitigate the dice problems. Very cool game. I really recommend it. I don't know if it would fit in a stocking, and as of this video, it does hover slightly above the $20 mark, so I'm not sure that it meets the criteria, but I would be remiss if I didn't point this out on the way to Catan dice game. Now this game, I don't even have the original box because it really didn't come in a box. It came in a throwawayable, disposable plastic container, so I had to use some hobby store container to house it. But this is a roll and write Catan. I had no idea such a thing existed. It was very cheap, and I picked it up on a whim, and I'm glad I did. It's Yahtzee style rolling. Same thing, 3 rolls, take the last roll, and then you're going to apply it. There are 2 maps that come with the game. On one side, when you're playing that game, you're basically just taking 15 turns and trying to score as many points as you can over that time. It's still somehow pretty tense because you can see what the other players might be doing, and you start to worry that you're not doing as well as they are. But the backside of the map, Island 2, is really Catan. You're trying to be the first one to get to 10 points. You're building roads and settlements and everything using the resources that are actually on the dice. So there's no cards like the real game. There's no trading. There's nothing like that. But it does kind of capture the feeling of Catan in a roll and write game. It's, a 30-minute game, maybe, very, very portable, perfect fit for a stocking. And you might have someone in your life that wonders what it is you do in the hobby. I hear you're a gamer. What kind of games do you play? Do you play Monopoly? Do you play Risk? And you can say, well, you might have heard of Catan. You might be actually able to get them to play this game and kind of see the light about what it is that we do in this great hobby. I highly recommend this game. It was very surprising and certainly worth the $10 or whatever it is. You might be able to find it online. So there you go. That's my stocking stuffers for this year. I just wanted to go ahead and throw some of them out so that just in case you hadn't seen any of these games or considered them as gifts for people, or you're just looking to jog your consciousness about something you might want to give to a nerd gamer in your life, I hope this video helps. If you would, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel while you're here. Regardless, have a good holiday.